This is the Team Objection Podcast for April 12th, 2022, episode 524. And as you can see from the top of the screen, if you're watching us on YouTube, which is really how you should be consuming this podcast, then you know the time has finally come. We've sort of danced around talking about the Suns off and on throughout the season. It's time to get serious. The playoffs are here. The 82-game regular season is over. And while we don't necessarily have a full picture of what the Suns' playoffs are going to look like, especially given their first-round matchup won't be decided until 3 days from now, we can still talk about the overarching journey because all of us, I'm going to give you a spoiler right now, are going to predict that we're going to at least win our first-round matchup. So we're going to talk about all that today. But first, before we get into the playoff stuff, I kind of just want to talk about the season in general. We'll get to the Suns specific ones. You can see on the right-hand side we have some best moments because we did talk about enjoying the journey. But in general, between how good the Suns were and all the things that happened that for us that were good, but also the league in general, this was a weird season, and I couldn't resist one last chance to dunk on the fucking Lakers.
So, first of all, this is a Valley Boy shirt. Dave, it's heretical that he's saying that's not even Suns anymore. It shows me he's just a bandwagon fan.
That is a bunch of bullshit.
So just wanted to get that out there. Dave equals bandwagon fan. So I hate talking about the Lakers. I get so annoyed when all outlets want to do is talk about the Lakers. But I feel like when you really break it down, one of the most disappointing seasons of any team in any sport in history, I think it warrants some attention. And the Lakers, how many examples do you have of a team that was selected almost unanimously to be a title favorite, certainly making the finals, to not even make the playoffs?
The biggest one that I've heard just mentioned over the past week was I think it was the 2011 Philadelphia Eagles had Michael Vick, who was supposed to be really good. They had two cornerbacks that were supposed to be the two best in the league. They were supposed to be the football dream team. And I think they finished 5-11 that year or something like that. It was supposed to be this we've never seen talent on one football team like this before. And they sucked. So, but in basketball, I mean, some people say that the Heat's first year was bad because they melted down the finals, which is stupid. They made the finals, so that's just dumb.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. You can't compare to. They didn't even make the playoffs, and I would say Michael Vick and that team, that your example, you didn't have the greatest player of all time. You didn't have. At one point, 3 of the top 5 talent in the NBA. Certainly not this year, but. It's just wild.
Well, as an added difficulty, they didn't even make the play-in game. So in theory, they had to then not be top 10. Mm-hmm. Now, the play-in doesn't count as the playoffs, so it would still have been a massive disappointment if they had made it in, that they limped in as the 10 seed and then lost or something. But to not even make the play-in game is an absolute travesty. And I agree with you to the point where it's they've been going a little bit hard on the Lakers the last couple days, but the test is going to come now. All the stuff that happened yesterday was because that was their exit interviews. That was them cleaning out their lockers. The season's over. Everybody goes home. Now, with the playoffs having begun, if they continue to talk about the Lakers, now that's going to be overkill from the media because I didn't think I was going to be that interested in what happened yesterday. And then Russell Westbrook opened his mouth, and all of a sudden I was a lot more interested in what happened yesterday.
Yep.
I crack up the most at the damage control that started immediately from LeBron's camp, where it's someone tried to float it out there that LeBron really actually wasn't in favor of trading for Russell Westbrook. It's we didn't really want him, and then that went over like a ton of bricks. So then the narrative changed to, well, we had this meeting before the season. Russell told me he was going to change his style of play. And it's just oh my God, you always have to control the narrative, don't you, LeBron? Have to. Yeah. There's no way you can't not.
Yeah, so it's terrible. So they fire the coach, which I guess you have to. But he won the finals with them
2 years ago.
Yesterday. Yeah, so that's a little weird. You also, again, you gave someone, this is always going to be the problem. It's not even almost worth talking about, but you give a coach a bunch of bullshit and you're work your magic. And when they can't, you're sorry, it's your fault somehow. I never understand it, but the coach is always the most expendable piece. So what are you going to do?
There was one of our local radio stations here in Phoenix basically had, as soon as the Suns knocked them out, they talked about the Lakers for the next day and then had a no Lakers rule for the rest of the season, which I thought was admirable of them.
Yeah, we could have a no Lakers rule too. I need someone like Boston, even though I don't really like Boston, but Boston, Milwaukee, obviously the Suns would be the best example to win the championship this year. to get at the other narrative because there's a lot of other things that are happening. So one is like Kyrie Irving sitting out the whole season, coming back basically at the very end, getting to play the whole thing. If the Nets were to somehow go on and win the championship, they're not going to. That would be really disappointing to me. If the Sixers win the championship after James Harden and all his bullshit, that would be really disappointing. I need a team who does it the right way. You know what I mean? And there's a few teams that do that. I want the Suns most of all, but I really can't have some of those other teams winning.
Well, it's why last year was so weird for me because I expected to be angry and pissed off like I have every other time when the Suns lose in the playoffs. And this time I was kind of like, yeah, they got us. Like, I hate it, but they got us. So I wasn't even mad because Milwaukee's kind of that thing.
Yeah.
They're exactly that.
If Kawhi comes back for some reason,
Yeah.
It's like, look, I know you can't control that, but like you really show like the regular season just doesn't matter at all. Get in by any means necessary, and then it matters. I think that's a terrible thing to have happen to the league.
Yep.
Yeah, the messaging is really dangerous going forward. We're going to have a hell of a CBA fight coming up for that and many other reasons. That's one of them, though, where it's like, forget load management. And now if you can set out entire regular seasons, now it's not even a matter of like, oh, you bought tickets for a random night and you missed out on stars. Now it's like you bought season tickets and you missed out on everything. Yeah. So it's a dangerous game that certain players are playing. They have the clout to do it in the case of like a Kawhi or something. But boy, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. And maybe this would be more clear if his camp was more forthcoming because, I mean, the timetable was supposed to be a year. We haven't even hit a year yet. So it's not like he was supposed to have come back in the regular season. But now even like Ty Lue is playing coy at press conferences with, he was doing work in the gym today. Oh, I didn't see it. Well, I mean, was he getting up shots and stuff? I don't know. You're like, well, you're the fucking coach, so you should probably at least have some idea, some inclination as to what your best player is up to.
He's a master.
Yeah.
That's why he's going to get win coach of the year.
Or is it, is Kawhi just being that secretive? Like, was he waited until Ty Lue left the gym and then got shots? Like, I wouldn't put anything past Kawhi in his camp. That dude does what he wants when he wants.
I wouldn't put anything past any player in their camp because as gifted as all these players are, very few of them I think actually understand the game. And that applies, not to bring it back to the Lakers, I know we're going to put them on a ban here, but like LeBron James now falls into that camp to some extent because his quotes yesterday were talking about how, well, it's up to the front office what we do going forward, as if he doesn't have a say, because let's all be honest, he should, and I would not begrudge him having a say. But then you pull receipts on him and you go back to last September and he had that quote. Remember that quote he had? Not the one about keep that same energy. That one was funny and also came back to bite him.
He got thrown back quickly.
But this quote, it was exciting helping put this team together this summer, understanding what I felt and what we all felt was going to make us a title contending team. I watch enough basketball to know what I need to do to help the ball club depending on the acquisitions we make per year. So I'm very cerebral about what I need to do for our team to be as great as we can be and to be the counterparts of what Russ brings to the table. ... I always figure it out.
Wow.
So, whoops. And this is the biggest issue with why it's so much fun to dunk on this fucking Lakers team. There was no accountability from any of them. Anthony Davis, whiny asshole crybaby. Russell Westbrook, oblivious asshole ball player. LeBron James, unworthy goat who's not self-aware and has really bad dad jokes. So watching all of them fail, in addition to it being the Lakers of all teams, it was just like, So I just wanted to put one more eulogy before we kind of put them to bed for the season, because we will not speak about them over the course of the... We have bigger things to worry about.
Eventually, we have to talk about how much damage I think LeBron has done to his GOAT argument. But that doesn't need to be today.
He already had that. Like last season, losing the first round of the playoffs the way he did was pretty damaging.
Well, sure, but to follow it up with this season,
it's strange because I don't think this hurts his like overall legacy. We're still going to think of him in 20 years with all these things that he did, and people aren't going to remember the first round exit or missing the playoffs. Kind of like Jordan missing the playoffs the first few seasons. But as far as GOAT, I think it absolutely does. So, like, when you think of LeBron James, the ball player, he's still going to be phenomenal and awesome and maybe top 2 or 3.
Second all time.
But those little things in a competition as close as him and Jordan is for me are going to add up. They absolutely are. Yep. But like you said, that's for later. Like that's a great offseason discussion. We have nothing else to discuss. Unless, the Suns win the title, in which case we'll probably be talking about that for weeks just because we won't know what to do with ourselves.
Speaking of the Suns, can we talk about them now? I'm so excited.
Sure, let's do it.
I want to mention... I don't usually get into this stuff. The discussion of MVP has been interesting because of the two different camps that have entrenched themselves in the, well, you don't watch basketball versus, well, look at the stats. So, I mean, I would, me personally, I lean Jokic instead of Embiid as far as MVP goes. I still like Booker just because he's got the best record, but I'm biased.
It's not Booker.
I know it's not Booker, but it's fine. I'm just really biased.
Stop.
I like Booker. I like Booker for MVP. I know he's not going to win it, but I still like it.
He'll be in the top 5, but that's fine. But anyway, I would pick Jokic. But it's been a really interesting discussion this whole season how just really fucking good these two guys have been. Like, Jokic is on another level. He's incredible.
And Giannis. We mentioned a couple weeks ago when we talked about Booker just being in the conversation that it's clearly a 3-horse race. But to me, Jokic is going to win this in a landslide, and he should. And that's not to say Embiid isn't close or didn't have a phenomenal season. It's kind of a shame because not only that, he's also going to get second-team All-NBA because too many voters are not going to go, well, he's eligible at forward. He's not a forward. He's a center. He has played 0 minutes at forward this season. So, like, the NBA trying to get cute and sidestep their own, like, positional designations is not the answer. If they want to pull this shit, then just get rid of the positions and reward the 5 best players. That, to me, is a bigger crime than him not winning MVP. Because the season he's been the second best player in the league this season. He's going to be behind 5 others on the second team because of the way the positions happen to break down.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't you? I mean, man, you could make a hell of a case for Giannis, though. Especially depending on what criteria you use, which is always the problem with this. But, like, he's on, like, his team is so good, and he's propelled them so far, and he's the best player on the team, but he also has a bunch of those stats, and I mean, he's great, but they don't want to give him. This would be his 3rd, right?
This would be
Has he only won 1? I thought he won 2.
He won before. And I know Jokic won last year, and I don't know.
I thought Giannis had 2.
I don't know if he was back to back, but I thought he had 2. Yeah. I could be crazy. Anyways, yeah.
I don't know. I look at 2 this season, and because there's been so many. The Suns have been in the position they are. I have been paying attention to some of the awards races more, and it does drive me nuts that the narrative has almost become the Suns are too good to win any awards, too.
Back to back, 19-20.
I win.
Yep. So, but like the narrative is almost out there that the Suns are too good to win any awards. Like I see people arguing against Monty Williams as the coach of the year because, well, everybody knew they were going to be good this year. I'm like, well, Vegas said 51 wins this year. The Suns had 64. That's a lot different, okay?
I'm just surprised with getting 64 wins, which is also our franchise record. I don't know. We don't have any real true MVP. Stop.
Nope, no
we don't have any true MVP candidate. We really don't have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I mean, he's not going to win. They're even talking about Coach of the Year, like maybe isn't a lock, and I'm just like, how? We have the best record in the NBA by a country mile.
Because we're too much of a team. We don't have anybody that stands out, which is
that's so stupid.
Garbage. Absolute garbage. Like I know, like ultimately these in-season awards don't matter, and honestly, for our title chances, it's probably better the way our guys are.
Yeah, I had that thought.
Possible. Like, let's win none of them. Like, let's make sure Monty doesn't win Coach of the Year because all of them will be so pissed off that they'll just go play their minds out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And there's bad news for everybody else, and that's that we don't vote on who wins the NBA title. So good fucking luck.
Yep.
Now look, I'm not trying to be, boisterous or, ruin things with superstitions. We are the favorites to win the title. I don't know if I would pick us against the field of the other 19 teams pared down to 15 here soon. But nonetheless, like hopefully the play on the court speaks for itself. And again, like you said, this team looks for any little slide they can find. And we've seen really, really small ones, much smaller than Monty not winning Coach of the Year or McHale not getting Defensive Player of the Year or whatever. Like, Booker's pitcher being wrong on the Jumbotron
which was totally an accident.
Or Minnesota talking shit in the second quarter. They've used those as fuel. So Lord knows, like you said, if Monty doesn't get it for some reason. And it's frustrating too because it's like, it's really meant to be this year. But if the disqualifying factor is, well, they're too good, they were supposed to be good from last year, but we're better than last year. And I think him not winning it last year should be at least a tiny factor in this because they've improved by more than 10 wins each season under him.
Yeah.
The culture has changed. It's been a quick turnaround. He's beloved around the league. And if you feel like you messed up by giving Tibbs the award last year, and you did, then I feel like that's the only recompense. He's leading right now among the early ballots. Probably only a third of them are in, though, so it's too early to say, but...
So, but if he doesn't win this year, do we have to win 74 games next year to continue this 10-win?
Well, it won't matter. It won't matter because so Dave, you sent me the reasoning that Memphis's coach deserves it because look what they did with their star out. And it's like, yo, we've had our stars out too. And we still got 64 wins. That one really made me mad because the reasoning was like, just didn't make any sense to me at all.
Coach of the Year is basically meant to be a overachiever award. Mm-hmm. So it's tough in this spot because the Suns did overachieve relative to expectations. And while they were among the contenders at the start of the year, I don't think anybody picked them as a de facto number one. If anything, it was Lakers, Nets, Bucks, Suns were in that mix. But the fact that they still did this well, again, over expectations. Nobody expected 64 wins. We didn't expect 64 wins, and we were higher than most. So that's frustrating.
I think my prediction was 59.
You had 59, I think. I don't remember if Sean or I had 56 or 57. We were right next to each other. I don't remember who was who.
Yeah, Dave, you were the most. I was next. Chris was third, but we were all like upper 50s.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I'm fine. I'm not fine if we don't win any awards, but I'm also fine if we don't win any awards. As like if that's what pushes it over the top to just destroy these playoffs, fine.
Yeah. Yeah, if I had to choose, like, if I knew that this would give us a ton of fuel, if it was the difference between winning the title or not, which it's not. We're so locked in that it's not going to matter. And
by the way, before we switch gears and talk about the Suns' best moments, one last bit of food for thought. If Giannis had not won the MVP before, he would be the ironclad MVP this year, and it wouldn't be close.
That's kind of what I mean, though, is like... So because of that, he probably should be the MVP.
There are always narratives, and it's always trying to reward new faces, which is why the Monty thing for coach is tough, because he was in that mix last year. So now it is about the new guys. And Taylor Jenkins is a deserving candidate. Like, he did a hell of a job there. But is it more about the narrative then, or more about rewarding who's the best? I mean, if we were talking about coach of the year, then, like, why the fuck has Greg Popovich not won it more? Why is Eric Spoelstra? I know this is a year where Spoelstra should be under consideration. Miami was a, revolving door of injuries, but that's not how these awards work. So, is Giannis the best player in the game right now? I think so. I don't even think it's that close anymore, as LeBron has fallen off, as Curry's kind of taken a slight step back, Kawhi's hurt.
If Durant could stay healthy.
Yeah, healthy Durant is up there. For sure.
Here's what bothers me, though. I think Booker's even talked about this before, the moving goalposts. Yep. It's you're not on a good enough team for whatever. And it's okay, well, you're not the best. And that's what is it now? You have to be the best, and all your other players around you have to go down in a horrific injury. That's the only way you can win MVP. It's stupid.
Well, yeah, just it's always a tough question because the most valuable player. I will say I kind of did follow that narrative when Nash won it back to back in the mid 2000s because you saw what happened when Nash missed time. Our team fell apart. So if you wanted to go by that word valuable, well, clearly he was the most valuable player to our team. But as I look at that going forward, it's kind of who's the most valuable player? I hate that word valuable. I kind of wish it was most outstanding player. Then we'll just say, okay, who was the best player this year?
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
And I still think if I had to say who was the best player this year, I'd still probably say Jokic because what the guy is doing is just batshit crazy right now, but it makes the argument a little bit easier, I think.
There's also going to be a long-term discussion that we should have at some point that's not today about how much of this is just stat stuffing. And I'm not even talking about stat padding, some Booker and LeBron and others have been accused of in recent past. I'm just talking about is it going to be impossible to win MVP if you're not a triple-double threat or something dancing around that going forward?
That's my point. And look, Jokic is crazy and he's really good. There's a part of me though, it's I don't know, if you were to remove a few pieces from the Suns, like Denver has right now, all of a sudden our guys would look so much better. But that's a flawed way to judge who the MVP is, kind of. It's so circumstantial. I don't know. I don't like it, but I'm jaded. If Booker was the number one candidate right now, maybe I would be oh, it's great. I love how the way we judge it, but whatever.
All in all, I will say it's nice that from everybody I've been reading, everybody's saying Booker's pretty much a lock for first team All-NBA, which is significant for him, not only in recognition, but in money in his next contract. Mm-hmm. Big deal for him.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. And that's important. And Monty was voted Coach of the Year by the Coaching Peer type award. That's not the official NBA one, but that's the second straight year for that, which means his efforts are recognized. Like, we know people recognize the Suns are good. We just feel slighted now because we don't feel like they think we're as good as we think we are, which is a convoluted sentence, but 100% correct.
It just seems like when it's other teams, everybody knows how good they are. But when they're the best, when the Golden State Warriors are the best, it's like, oh my God, everybody. When the Suns are the best, it's like,
I can pick apart their game a little bit.
Yeah.
I can figure out what's wrong. Like, they're not that good.
How about this? How long into the season were we hearing we're right where we want to be? We'd actually secretly love the Suns in the first round.
That was all Shaq. He's an idiot.
I know, but it's such disrespect.
Yeah, nobody ever really pulls the receipts on these for the people that say outlandish and dumb things. I mean, we've seen plenty from like Stephen A. Smith, who's been on the Suns bandwagon more recently.
Yes.
Really pushing Booker, really pushing the Suns. But then you look back at the start of this season and the end of last season where he's had some dumbass things, and you're like, okay, I'm glad you've come around, but at the same time, it's like, you also said these dumb things, and are we just supposed to pretend like that didn't happen?
Yes, which, by the way, thank you for bringing that up. The fact that Stephen A's on the Booker train, no, you don't get to jump on now. I'm mad about this because I feel like this is actually not true at all, and he's just trying to do his Stephen A stir up controversy thing again. And no, I'm not cool with this. I don't like it.
He's a bandwagon not fan, so I guess a bandwagon analyst?
You have a hot take about Stephen A's hot take.
I mean,
interesting.
I guess it's better than Skip Bayless with the, saying my Clippers. Like,
don't even get me started with that guy. Honestly, it's why I hope we don't face the Clippers at all. And maybe we'll get to predictions or matchups or whatever at some point. But yeah.
Best moments.
All right. No more negativity. It doesn't matter if we're slighted. The play on the court will speak for itself, we hope and pray. So Dave asked me to add this topic, and it was a solid one. I think I saw something similar going around on Twitter the other day as well, where people were just kind of looking back, reflecting on franchise record for wins. Again, we've talked about it a couple times off and on this season about what a hell of a ride it's been, and hopefully will continue to be. But before we transition into the playoffs, which comes with its own pressure and its own high-stakes moments, what did you really like about the regular season? Specific moments, plays, or just like this overall feeling? Like, what sticks out?
I'll go first. I think my favorite moment of the whole season, the moment I was the most hype was, it was either we were really deep into our biggest win streak, and it was either to put us over the edge for the record, or to get us really close, or add to it, whatever. But it was Golden State, and it was a first matchup, and it was a great game, and we won. And I feel like that was the game where I was like, whoa, we really are, like, last year was not a fluke. I mean, I knew it wasn't a fluke, but we really cemented, like, we're even better this year. And that was really cool.
That game, if I recall correctly, Mikal Bridges swatted Steph Curry, I think, twice. Curry was like 1 of 11 from 3 or something like that. Some really bad shot percentage. Ayton blocked Curry on a 3 at the end of the half, and we just ran him down. It was just one of these like, oh, that tied our record, Sean. If you
great, perfect. Yeah, that's
and
great.
We set it the next night. We set the record the next night, and then lost to Golden State 2 nights later, which is just kind of like, oh man. But regardless, yeah, that was a fun early season when we're like, hey, we're here, guys. Like, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I don't know that any of us thought that we were a fluke last year, but I think you couldn't help but second guess it a little bit. And after the now infamous 1-3 start, again, I don't think any of us were panicking by any means. It's like, okay, well, one of those losses was a dumbass Harrison Barnes buzzer beater and blah, blah, blah. We've been down the road before. But that streak, all of a sudden, it was like, okay, I wouldn't expect that, but this is much more aligned with what I expected. And it was a slow start. And could you blame them? I mean, hell, like Trae Young got flack for talking about that exact same thing, where it's like, it's tough after coming off a deep playoff run to care about games 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's a human element. It's really hard to get up for that same intensity. So not to excuse it, but, once that 18-win streak was reeled off and you held Curry to 5 of 21 from the field and like one of the worst performances of his career, that was reassuring and it felt good because you're like, okay, yeah, we're here. Who knows how good we're going to be ultimately, but like we're here. Yeah. We're in the conversation. We belong.
And it was a marquee game that we won. And I feel like in 2005, we had a great Suns team. I just feel like every time we went up against like a really good team, we would choke. So we had this great record against bottom feeders, but we just couldn't beat the good teams. And I'm sure my memory is making it worse than it was. But this win stuck out to me as hyped game, a lot of attention, and we performed anyway. And it was great.
I have so many best moments, which I know defeats the purpose of the word best, but still it's hard to narrow this down. I mean, the one that comes to mind is the Devin Booker, the thing we talked about earlier with Devin Booker and his the Amir Coffey picture that was put up and him taking that personally. I just find that funny. Like, that comes to mind as a fun game because in that game, he not only scored 49 points and had 10 assists, which is just like, whoa, that's really good. But also he was like going in and just ripping the ball away from players. Something I've never seen Booker do. I've never seen him like go after. He stole it from Jokic and lobbed an alley-oop to DA. Then got another play later, stole it, passed it to Campaign, who missed the three. Then Booker stole the rebound away and got fouled and made a shot. I was like, where did this guy come from? It was just one of these like, oh, you're going to take a slide at us? And then we had a terrible first half and came back and won. Theme of the season was, oh, yeah, fourth quarter Suns, they're going to beat you. Like, they're going to beat you, so just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So that was one of them. I got more, but I'll let Chris go.
It's kind of remarkable, though, right? Like, now we just take it for granted. We assume it's part of this team's identity, but consistently, over and over again, the team would be ahead by a few points, trailing by a few points, and at no point did we panic. At no point were we even worried about the outcome. There were a couple different games at different points over the course of this entire 82-game season where one or two of us might have chucked out on a game, and then they came back and won anyways. But overall, it was like, oh, we're down by 4 starting the fourth quarter? Okay. Whatever.
Well, and for me, one of my best moments is that I would say always reliable at the end. It's a feeling that I've never had with a team I've rooted for of like, we're down 6 with 4 minutes left. I feel pretty good about this. The other team we know, they have to be up by like a good 15. And even then, it's not safe.
We almost came back against the Clippers. We were down 40.
Exactly. And that was with our scrubs, too. So, I will boil it down, though. We had a back-to-back in Dallas, with Dallas. And both games, we were losing the entire game by like double digits. And right up to about 5 minutes left in the fourth, won both games. And I was like, wow, this is just a thing we do. Those games really cemented that, and we just really carried it through the rest of the season, really.
It's been really fun having betting legalized here in Arizona because for a lot of this season, all I would do is wait until the Suns were positive on the winning margin, where it's like, because normally, the Suns are favorites, so you're not going to get full money return on your bet. All you have to do is wait until the Suns were plus 100 or higher, and then you bet that, and then you're good to go. Like, you're going to win your bet most
every
games.
Time. Yeah,
every time. I won a lot off of that, so it was great.
Like clockwork.
Yeah,
it's weird, and we still haven't lost if we've taken a lead into the fourth quarter. I can't imagine that lasting through the playoffs.
47-0.
Like, what the hell is that?
We won 31 road games.
Yeah, we had the same home run road records. Like. And as good as the Nash era Suns were, there was always that threat that Steve was going to get worn out down the stretch, and because everything ran through him, it might fall apart a bit, or like we would just not be able to lock in defensively and blow a lead or something. Yep. I mean, to your earlier point, Sean, like there are certainly games I remember where we beat the shit out of teams with the Nash era Suns, like 7 seconds or less. Like LeBron was terrible against us almost every time, and even in some of the nationally broadcast ones, I remember beating him by like 30.
We blew teams out consistently.
Yeah,
this team doesn't blow people out. They just win.
But we also don't lose games we shouldn't.
We're gonna do exactly what we need to just win. That's it.
Mm-hmm. It's weird, but it's working better. So by all means, like as fun as it was putting up 50-point quarters, which this team has also almost done a couple times, but just burying teams with a avalanche of offense, it's much better just to get the W. It doesn't have to be flashy or cool. I'll throw one into the mix that's not my favorite, but one that stood out to me when I thought back on the season, and that was against the Bucks when Cam Johnson's posted up on the left block and he hits a cutting Mikal Bridges for an and one layup on Bobby Portis, which is part of what made it better because, I don't dislike Bobby, but he is easy for us to hate as Suns fans because he's all bug-eyed and weird. If he was on our team, we'd love him. But an and one on Bobby Portis for Bridges, and he just, after he makes the layup, he leans back and he goes, "He mad!" And it became like a memeable moment for the rest of the season because he's got this wide-eyed, huge grin like Mikal does. He has the best faces. Yep. So that was one because that was a game, again, like the Warriors game, where it's like, this is another contender, and we're putting our foot in their ass right now. And this is great. It doesn't, is it revenge for last year? No, I'm sure the Bucks are like, yeah, we want a title, whatever. But, that plus the 8 and alley-oop that actually got over Giannis, little things that were like, okay, this is helping me move past that a little bit.
Yep.
And also, the McHale faces throughout the year. That's not a moment, but there are so many McHale faces that you could just pull from this season. Like there was the one against the Jazz where Jay Crowder was lifting him up like with his tongue out, and McHale just like,
and then spanked him like 7 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If ifs were fifths, we'd all be drunk was another really, really great. Yeah, he just the composure and the icy veins too. Because like that was composed, but also very like targeted, very masterfully done.
I will say not a favorite of mine. I'll say my favorite, but not a favorite of mine. But the other Bucks game when we're missing Paul and Booker, and we were close that whole game. I thought we had a chance to beat him without Paul and Booker. We ended up losing to him, but still, that was a fun game. Like that was really a fun game.
Just quality basketball, and it took Chris Middleton going crazy, which he did a couple times in the finals too. But to really put that away down the stretch because the talent gap just finally revealed itself in crunch time because we didn't have the 2 guys who were so critical to our crunch success. But I walked away from that loss being like, cool, good game. Hats off to the Bucks. Didn't have our best. You guys are missing Brook Lopez too. Maybe we'll see you in the finals. Bye.
Yep.
I liked that Booker really stepped up this season. In a way, I like that Paul got hurt. I didn't really like that, but hey, silver lining. I also liked that. So we've had teams before where it's like, you just better hope there's no injury. Joe Johnson got hurt. That was it. We were done. If Nash had ever gotten hurt, done. Like that, there's no way a team could operate. If Chris Paul goes down, boy, does the road get harder. But I would not say we're just done. Let's pack it in. We have no chance anymore. And that's a really nice feeling. It's like the team is so good that we can kind of shore up that gap a little bit.
Yeah, that was just a reoccurring thing is campaign. Those games that we missed were Booker, Paul, and campaign route was just kind of like, okay, this is a little bad. We have nobody to create at all anymore. So those were rough, but still the system is really good. And surprisingly, somehow Aaron Holiday came in and is better than Elfrid Payton. I don't think there's much question about that. And we just got him off the scrap heap. We got Bismack Biyombo off the scrap heap.
Exactly.
They're not starting caliber players, but like they're serviceable. Like they can win a couple games.
I just want to say that like Chris Paul goes out, we were 11-4, which I believe was one of the best winning percentages still of that. At one point, we saw the best winning percentage in the NBA. And with the Golden State without Steph Curry, they look like garbage. They're trash. They're terrible. So that's like a weird moment, just like Booker's ascension that I really liked, but also helps me feel good about this postseason.
Devin Booker led the Suns in scoring 52 times this season, and of course he missed, I think, 10, 11, 12 games. So those were other games he couldn't do it in, so it wasn't even out of 82. We were 43-9 when he led us in scoring. Now, obviously, we had all of our records are good because our overall record was phenomenal. So like home, road, west, east, blah, blah, blah. But that's even better than our overall win percentage. And it just goes to show you because there's a stat floating out there that I think is helping him in this like first team All-NBA case. And it's about how like he has the fewest touches for someone who scores at his level.
Yeah.
So it shows how diversified the offense is. And obviously Chris Paul's pretty ball dominant, but nonetheless, it's like, nothing against Trey, who had a phenomenal year, or Luka, or whomever, but like the difference is he's getting his numbers and he's not dominating the offense.
Yeah.
He is still, but he's only doing it in the spots where it makes sense for him.
Yeah.
And that's a big time evolution for him. It's something he and Paul did not have the chemistry when they started last season, but it's just been developing over time. Yeah.
Do you remember the beginning?
Taking turns, and we were 8-8,
and then I'll do it. And that's so funny.
They figured it out.
Oh yeah.
I got another moment that is, I don't know that people would look at this moment as like, or a game as like, oh man, this is great. But the game against the Kings, first half, worst, terribly officiated game. Everybody on the Suns in foul trouble. We're missing Chris Paul. I want to say we're missing Cam Johnson in the game. Oh, Crowder, I think Crowder was missing that, or got hurt during the game. Booker fouled out. Ayton fouled out. McGee had foul trouble. And we came back and won that game in overtime. And it was just one of these, like, how this doesn't happen. You can't lose 7 people on your team and come back and win this game. And somehow, some way, the Kings being the Kings, I guess. But, like, we won that game. And that was stupidly satisfying in a game where most other years I'd be like, it happens. Like, this time we were down. We lost. It's okay. But we came back and won. It was incredible.
Yeah. Do you know it? Many other years, Cam Johnson's 3 would have been the play of the year for us.
Yeah.
To win the game against the Knicks, and here it's like, awesome, great moment, so cool. Not the best moment of the year though. That feels great.
It's on my list.
Yeah,
It's on my-
and
But
it's
it's not
awesome.
my number one. Yeah, I mean the Kings game was especially frustrating because the whistle felt awfully lopsided, and Crowder was hurt in that game when he got undercut on a 3, and it wasn't called in a game where fouls were being called like they were fucking candy, just throwing them out of the crowd. Everybody gets some candy. So we have all these players in foul trouble. They eventually foul out, including Booker in overtime, and like you said, still pull it out. Testament to the team's depth. Depth's not going to matter as much in the playoffs, but you never know if there are injuries or people having to miss time, which, as we saw, almost everybody was impacted by, including the Suns last year. We now know between that or foul trouble, we have the depth to take on just about damn near anything. And that's reassuring because we know what happened to our front court last year. It was Ayton, and if he got in foul trouble, pray for fucking rain.
Yeah. Yep. There was one play, Dave. I don't want to go a lot into plays because we have so many good plays, but the one that sticks out in my mind, Booker's falling out of bounds on the baseline and just whips a pass. I forget which game. Full court. They catch it. I think it ends up in an alley-oop, but even if it doesn't, it's just like how do you have the vision, the control, the confidence to throw a pass like that? Mm-hmm. And he does it all the time. Him to Bridges connection is so good.
Just Mikal Bridges is quickly becoming my favorite player. Like Booker is still Booker, but God, I love Mikal. I love him so much.
It's going to be one of the bargain contracts in the NBA.
Oh yeah, he already is.
He's already it is right now, but it's only going to get better. He started the year a little shaky, at least offensively. We talked at the very beginning in our preview about how we were really hoping he would become a third option. At least more of one. He doesn't need to be like right up there with Paul and Booker, but assert himself as around Ayton's level as far as like go-to offensive ability. Did not start out that way. Has become that very much. He's added that little like 8 to 10 footer going to his left as he cuts across the court. He's obviously still a tremendous backdoor cutter. One of the best finishers in the NBA on the fast break. Like he's really improved his offensive game, and defensively he's still as advertised.
But here's what I'll say. You remember us talking and we were saying, I would rather him take, this is like the Haikyuu to put an anime into this. Like I'd rather him take some time now where it's not as good, but he's working on those things that eventually is going to make him so much better. Then like just, he's still consistent, but he's never going to grow. And like, look what happened. He had a shaky beginning of the year, but now he's, I mean, if we were looking at, I forgot what game it was, but he scored like 5 consecutive baskets in crunch time.
Against the Jazz.
It was recent. Yeah. And it's like, he did it, and it was worth that little bit of shaky time that he had.
They're almost unstoppable play is in the fourth quarter. Mikal will catch it near the elbow and do a fake dribble handoff and just go.
Yep.
And just go. And it works so much.
His first step is Giannis-esque. It gets him like 6 feet. He spins on, he like pivots off the 1 foot, and he takes a step, and he's at the basket because he's so lanky. And I mean, there were too many games last season where you'd look at a box score and Mikal had like 5 shot attempts.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't really trying to demand the ball in any situation. And even when it was given to him, he was only looking for like the best shots. Now it turns out many of his shots can be the best shot on a possession, and he knows it.
Well, it's so hard to contend with his length. So that play where he does the fake dribble handoff, if he can't get to the rim, he'll get to 12 feet and just shoot it. He'll just shoot over the top, and he's stunningly efficient.
It's so important, and we keep talking about this. It's gonna scar me forever. But if Mikal was on this level in the finals last year, we win, because you take the best defender, you put him on Booker, second best on Paul or whatever, but then if Bridges can be reliable in that third spot, that's it. What are you gonna do?
Yep.
Well, you can't contend with all 4 of them. Even like the Bucks in that example. Okay, Giannis, Drew, and Middleton's a decent defender as well. Like they're all solid, right? Well, if you have Ayton, Bridges, Paul, and Booker, you run out of people because Brook Lopez is not going to guard DeAndre Ayton that well.
Yeah.
Not enough to make it, and Ayton can take care of him on the other side. So like you're not worried about that matchup. And then who's the 5th guy? I don't know, DiVincenzo or whomever. You're like, okay, good luck, because you get on a switch, we're going to attack you every time. Best of luck.
I feel bad because because Ayton hasn't averaged like Embiid numbers, like he doesn't get talked about a lot, but like he's had a really solid season.
A great season.
You could argue not max contract season, but a super good season still.
worry about that after we win the title.
Exactly.
And I have concerns. I mean, I talked even before the playoffs last season about how, man, you look at the current landscape of the NBA and the window is so small. And we're seeing it now because, Ayton about to get paid, Cam Johnson about to get paid. We can't even really afford all of our main guys. And Chris Paul coming off the books might help with that. But it shows you we haven't even won anything yet. Fingers crossed we're about to this season. But, we haven't done anything yet, and already you can feel the window closing. The window hasn't even opened yet, really. We're in it. It's a contention window, but you know what I mean? We haven't even won a title. And we might be looking at, 2 more years before we have to make some really difficult decisions, if not less, depending on what Sarver does with this offseason. But like Dave said, there'll be time for that in the summer, hopefully after a long ticker tape parade, and then we'll figure out, in the afterglow, what that looks like.
Yep.
2 last best moments. I have my
and I never gave my number one either.
Yep. So here's my top 2. I know my number 1 is not Chris's because he already said it was. So sorry, I'm revealing. But my number 2 was the Minnesota Timberwolves game where Karl Anthony Towns did the too short thing and dunked on Jay Crowder, did the too short thing, and then proceeded to just get his ass wrecked the rest of the game. I don't recall exactly what it was, but I want to say he had 21 or 22 in the first half and 4 in the second half. We destroyed him. And then the cap of it was Booker dunking on D'Angelo Russell, turning around yelling, "I ain't got no friends." I was like, oh, God, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was on my list. All the spiteful games were on my list. So the Kings you mentioned were on my list. The Timberwolves were on my list. Anybody who got too big for their britches, and they all seemed to happen in the second half. It wasn't like back in October when we were scuffing a little bit, we weren't 100%, and so I was like, oh, we can catch them when they're vulnerable. It's we were already the number 1 team in the league, and now you're going to try and talk shit in the second quarter, knowing what this team does in the fourth, and every time it backfired. Oh, it was so satisfying.
We're really the old stories of Michael Jordan were always, don't piss that guy off, don't talk to him, don't give him anything. That's how this season felt in some ways, where it was just oh, you're up by 10 and you're going to talk shit? Uh-oh.
Which is the way it should be with the greats. Thinking of a Kobe or a Jordan, if they're having an off game, why would you want to throw a new element in the mix? Why would you want to rile them up and see if that's the thing that pushes them over the edge because you know how competitive they are? But teams do it. They fuck around and they find out. So we'll see if they want to do that in the playoffs too, because if they do, I like our chances. I like our chances regardless. But my number 1 moment is Devin Booker giving a signed jersey to Al McCoy.
Yeah,
that's very nice.
That's my number 1. It's not an on-the-court moment. It's not an in-game moment. It's recognizing not only that... So Dave and I went to a game a couple months ago, and as we were driving home, we were talking about, is Devin Booker the best Phoenix Sun of all time? And I said, I'm not quite there yet. When he handed that jersey to Al McCoy, it changed it for me. And I know that sounds stupid, but to me, it's a recognition Booker understands. He fucking gets it. He understands what this franchise has been through, who's been here for so long, who's been pivotal in it. To take the time when they get the franchise record to give Al McCoy a signed jersey in his 50th season, to me was I already love the guy, but now that's the kind of stuff that gets me. I teared up a little bit when I saw that. I was like, God damn, he gets it. And that's all you can ask out of your guy. Giannis is the same thing for the Bucks. There's a lot of other examples, but somebody who gets it, and more than just the basketball level.
He's the level of self-awareness that guy has is stunning to me. I've never seen someone who is 25 years old. He's only 25, and he just your comment earlier, John. You said the ifs for fists, we all be drunk. Being able to address the media and get your point across without being direct in that way is amazing to me. So yeah, he gets it. That's it.
Yeah, that's a great moment, both because McCoy deserved it for how long he's been with the franchise. We just keep letting him down. But also Booker knowing to do that. You're absolutely right. That's the marriage of both of those things is really sweet.
Yeah. I'll say, my number 1 moment was probably Cam's shot, and I might be overestimating it, but that whole game leading up to it, the fourth quarter of Cam just going nuclear, hitting there's a couple times the Knicks were the Knicks in that game where somehow, some way, Cam Johnson came off screen and no one was within 5 feet of him when he's already hit 6 threes. It's what are you guys doing? This is just. But then there was the fight with Julius Randle.
Yeah, spiteful game. It was another spiteful game.
Another spiteful game. We're missing Paul and Booker in that game.
Yep.
The 2 moments for me was I think it was a minute and a half left, and I think the Suns were down 5 or 4, maybe something like that. And Cam Johnson was guarded closely on the right wing and just said, fuck it, and shot the 3 and nailed it. I think it was his 8th 3 of the game. And it was just like, how this guy is just going on fire right now. And then that last play, the Knicks missed the free throw. And Cam has the wherewithal and just the presence of mind to hang back and let everybody run past him. Cam Payne drops the ball and he banks it in. It's just screamed so much he spits out his face. That's fucking game. It's just such a good feeling. Like I felt so good watching that game.
Like 12 times. Yeah, that's fucking game. And then he has spittle on his chin, and Chris Paul's like, "Hey, could you?" And so he doesn't look bad in like the post game interview because Chris Paul is, meticulous.
But again, another guy. I love this guy. Like he seems just like a quality dude that I want to spend time with. Everybody on our team seems that way, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So, and Cam deserved it. I think from how much work he's put in. He deserved that game, and he got it. I loved it.
That's why, as silly as a random and one in the third quarter against the Bucks was, it's because it was this Cam McHale connection and what that's represented over the course of the season, the lemonade stand and all that jazz. Like their chemistry, it's easy to forget now because Cam missed so much time, but like I'm hoping that really shows up again in the playoffs. So we have all these fond memories, but none of them are going to hopefully supersede what is about to happen. The memories we could have coming up. Again, not jinxing anything. I don't believe in that shit. We obviously respect there's a lot of other contenders out there, but I think the Suns are a prohibitive favorite. We're going to get to predictions. Spoiler alert, I think all three of us are going to pick us to win the title, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on them. But here's the two questions I do have, and it kind of leads into predictions. Number one is, of the 4 teams, and right now 2 of them are playing to see who does not play the Suns in the first round, so we might have a little bit more insight, but of the 4 teams in the playing game, who's the team you want to play the most? Who's the team you want to play the least?
Well, I will say right now, as we speak, Timberwolves are up 157-56, so this is not going to help us whatsoever in eliminating somebody.
No.
Who I want to see the most is the Spurs. I mean,
yeah,
it's not going to happen, but it's the Spurs.
Probably Spurs and then Minnesota. The answer would almost be Minnesota, except like one of the only things that could derail our season now is injury, and with Pat Beverly, you never fucking know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know. The Pat Bev effect on that entire team has made them all a little chippy. So I'm like, maybe it's just best to avoid Minnesota after all. Clippers, yeah, I don't really want to see. New Orleans is like, they're almost like an unknown commodity now because they're like playing quite a bit better. And I would just rather not. I want an easy, I think we can beat any of them, but I want an easy first round.
I think if I had to stack rank them, it is almost the exact order you would expect. Spurs is the one team I want to see the most because they're the worst. They're in the 10th spot. Then the Pelicans would be second for me. Then probably the Timberwolves and the Clippers, I think, would probably be my 4 in order.
It's the challenging part of all of this. We just saw it in the earlier matchup tonight with the Nets, who are as close to full strength as they're going to get without Ben Simmons, who is another question mark if they can make the first round, beating the Cavaliers, who have just this laundry list of injuries. If they had been full strength, there's no way they're the 7th seed, but there's no way they probably lose that game if they are. But now they're going to have to go fight for their playoff life. The West is kind of similar. We don't know what the Clippers are. I can't imagine Kawhi playing, but if he does, that team could be scary. The Spurs kind of just backed their way into it because the Lakers sucked, so I'm definitely putting them number 1. That's no slight to them. They play hard, and Popovich is great, but I'm not really worried about them in a 7-game series. The Pelicans could get Zion back. The reports are all over the place on him. We don't know. What kind of shape is he in then? I'm not even talking like, game shape, but just in general. Not to fat shame the guy, but if he comes out, what's he going to be? Is he going to be Zion, the borderline All-NBA player, or is he going to be something that plays like 15 minutes a game and barely has a contribution? So it's tough to say for sure, but like you said, I'm not worried about any of these 4 opponents, so it's probably Spurs the most, Clippers the least, just because I'd rather somebody else knock them out or them not make it at all, but I don't know.
Yeah, the best case scenario is the Clippers don't make it at all. That would just be fantastic, I think, but it's probably not going to happen.
Who are you most afraid of in the West?
I would probably have to say Golden State. I think it just all of them healthy. If Clay really started being Clay again,
like a healthy Golden State. I get what you mean.
Sure.
Though. Yeah.
I think in their best form, they're the most dangerous team besides the Suns.
Yeah.
Can they achieve that best form considering Draymond's back and Steph's foot and Clay's rust, which he played pretty damn well the last couple weeks? I mean, who the hell knows? But I mean, some of their players stepped up quite a bit. Jordan Poole, who would be my pick for most improved,
I agree.
stepped up in a huge way for them, and has finally gotten used to playing with Clay a bit more. They haven't had all three of them on the court at the same time, barely at all. But that's the team I'd be most worried about. I'm a little bit more concerned about Memphis than I would have been halfway through the season. And it's not even really just because of how they played without Ja, because I think in many ways Ja is exploitable on defense, as good as he is offensively. But in general, as a young, hungry team, and it would be a drag-out fight in a 7-game series.
Yeah, they just always seem to have our number, too. They're one of those weird ones where you can have a really good team like Dallas. Maybe I should care more, but I don't. I think we can beat them. Well, I mean, let's forget that Luka might be hurt anyway, but like we just seem to always match up really well against Dallas, right? No matter how good they are. Memphis is like the opposite. I've been saying for years, like, I don't know about this Memphis game. They always seem to beat us, and they always seem to beat us almost every game. I'm so sick of it. Even like near the end of the season, and I'm not taking too much away from that game, but it was like a slam dunk for us to win, and we still found a way to lose. So I don't like them. I don't know. They have our number.
I think we're 2-2 against them this season. So
it feels like we're 0-6.
I mean, we lost that one game you just mentioned, and we lost on a job buzzer beater after Booker thought we won the game on a Booker 3. So they're a tough team, but the argument against the Suns last year was playoff experience, and I think that was a bad argument against the Suns last year because we actually did have guys with playoff experience. Grizzlies have none. They have none.
They played 6 games last year.
What's that?
Five or 6 they lost to Utah in last year.
No, man. Oh, that's right. I think it was 5.
I think they might have even won game 1 and then gotten swept or something.
Yes,
but they have a little, and I think it's still kind of overrated. I think yes, there is a difference in intensity and all that jazz and preparation, but like you're a good team, you're going to play well in the playoffs. And outside of Chris Paul, and I guess Jay Crowder, the Suns didn't have a ton. Everybody else was brand new, but that was still enough because that's 2 of their leaders. So switching gears then, because it's kind of connected to the burning question. Are any of us not picking the Suns to win the title? As scary as that is.
No, you gotta pick them. We almost all chose them last year. Dave was the only one who ended up doing it, and we were in a much worse spot last year to win the whole thing. There's no reason not to choose them. They're their overwhelming favorite. It's smart to choose the Suns. Although I heard it's not smart to bet on the Suns because the way that the betting is, like you're gonna win nothing. It's not even worth it to bet on them.
The Suns are right now plus 110 to win the West. So you're basically getting even money for the Suns to come out of the West as the Western Conference champion, which is not great odds. I mean, yes, they're the favorites, but also that's not great odds to try to bet.
Yeah, because one devastating injury or something, knock on all the wood, etc. But, you never know. All it takes is one thing.
Yep.
One bad matchup, etc. But this is the reason I transitioned to this is because there are no other teams in the West that scare me at all. I don't care about Dallas. I don't care about Denver. I don't care about Utah. And we already talked about the play-in teams. Now, it's not exactly going out on a limb to be like, oh, well, my concern is the 2nd and the 3rd seed. But in this case, there was that gap. The records represented it. So then it's a question of the East, which is part of why the Suns are the favorites as well. In addition to their own acumen, it's also about, well, the East has like 5 or 6 teams that could come out of it. Like the top 5 seeds are all pretty good. The Bulls fell the hell off a cliff, but they're not terrible. And then you have like the Hawks and the Nets lingering in the play-in range where they could win a series or 2 if the matchups are right. So as we lock in these predictions, we're not really worried about who's winning. We're all taking the Suns and we're all crossing our fingers till like the blood circulation cuts off. But then who are you picking them over?
I want to say first, I'm obviously, yes, you're right. We're picking the Suns, but I'm picking the Suns to a point where I truly feel that if we don't win, it will be disappointing. Not to oh crap, we didn't win. I'm disappointed that we didn't win. It's like this was it.
Yeah,
like we didn't win this year. This was it. It like it's not a failure. I don't like using that word. It's like, man, just the whole season sucked because we didn't win the title. But damn it, this is gonna hurt.
I will. If we lose, I will see next season as what you're saying. That'll be next season for me of like, all right. This truly feels like this is the last shot. There's too many moving pieces. There's Paul getting older. Like this is going to be it. And I don't want that pressure. Let's go for 2 in a row next year. So, now who over? The more time goes on, the more I'm like, are we just headed for a rematch with Milwaukee? And that'd be cool.
I'm okay with it. And I think, it's funny. People were like, "Oh, that sucks. 2 small markets." Man, what a great narrative for the NBA.
Yeah,
of, hey,
exactly.
Here's this rematch. I think it's a great narrative for the NBA to have this rematch.
And it was a good finals.
Better with the Suns team that is markedly better than last year.
Yeah, it was a good finals last year.
Yeah.
Very good finals.
It didn't work out great for us, and the 4 straight hurt, especially because we were in 3.5 of those. But as far as an entertainment perspective, if you didn't think last was good, then you're biased. It's not even a question of us being Suns fans thinking it was good. It was a good series.
Yeah.
It had drama. It had excellent performances, individual team. It had about everything you could want other than, it's not LeBron versus Steph 7. Well,
yeah.
Guess what? It's nice to have a change of pace, not just because we're in it, but just because in general. Even I was a little sick of Warriors Cavs.
4 times in a row that one happened.
Yeah. If I'm locking in a prediction, I think Milwaukee is the smart pick. I'm going to pick Boston.
Okay.
And that would scare the hell out of me because I imagine by the finals, Time Lord would be back. And that's a team that I think does match up pretty well against us in the type of lineups we prefer to play. Not to say I'd pick them over us in a 7-game series, nor do I think that they're quite as good as they've been in the second half. That first half still kind of lingers in the back of my mind. It hasn't just gone away. But I think as long as Robert Williams? Yeah, that's the one. It's gotten to the point where his nickname is so ubiquitous that I forget sometimes. And there's multiple players with Williams. So if Robert Williams comes back in the first or second round and it's time to get back to speed, that's the team that I think concerns me the most from the East.
I hate that you stole my thunder because I was going to say that exact same thing. I think Boston, if I had to predict, it'd be Boston. Although Milwaukee is right there. And I think I'd feel better about a matchup against Milwaukee because I feel like we almost know their tricks and we kind of almost built this team in a way to counteract all of their tricks. And we have the personnel to do it now with Bismack and JaVale to have that wall, that Giannis wall. But I mean, the Bucks have gotten better too. I mean, Serge Ibaka is a great fit on their team. But overall, yeah, the Celtics worry me just because I think their coach is fantastic. We didn't even mention him as far as coach of the year. This coach of the year race was pretty stacked, I will say.
Yeah.
But what he's done with that team throughout this year has been amazing. I mean, how crappy they started and then turned into this juggernaut the second half of the season to get the 2. I think they got the 2 seed, right?
Yeah, 2 seed. Now, it's partly because Milwaukee didn't seem to care about the 2 seed.
Well, and that's the wrinkle is I almost look at Boston kind of the way the Suns were last year. This team that really picked up steam in the second half of the year, had a really good system, good coach. All of a sudden, look who you got to face in the first round.
Yeah, which is why Milwaukee played that the way they did. I mean, they sat everybody for the finale, and they seemed to be content with 3. It bumped Philly down to 4. And that's the hardest part about either of our 2 picks in this case, Boston or Milwaukee. That's the second-round matchup. If Boston makes it.
I am almost of the opinion of how the Suns were last year. It's God, if they can get out of the first round, I think they're going to go all the way. Because that's a big if with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant getting in your way.
But Boston's looking at Brooklyn, Milwaukee probably because the Bulls are not very good and Milwaukee is, and then likely Miami or Philadelphia.
Yeah,
that's pretty tough, and it's going to be almost the same for anybody coming out of the East because they are good, like we mentioned. But to pick Boston, I'm going against what I think would be the smart play, which is staying out of that part of the bracket. But that's where I'm going to go, and if I'm wrong, I'll probably be happy because fuck Boston.
So the Suns are going to be like Suns versus Spurs. Fingers crossed. And then Utah because Dallas.
I have to say, I think Luka's playing game 2. I'm going to be real honest with you. I think this stuff is overblown as shit.
Maybe. I mean,
he's in a walking boot. It's maybe it's a precaution. It's he's an MRI. I don't know if his return is, what was it, indefinite or what? Yeah. He's out indefinitely.
No timetable as of right
now.
You
know where they probably learned that trick from? The Clippers, who they've played in the first round twice now because of Kawhi's never-ending litany of mysterious circumstances around his injuries. Why would they tell not the Clippers? Why would they tell the Jazz what Luka's status is?
It's funny because I still wouldn't choose the Dallas over Utah, except Utah's their own worst enemy now. They
I know. Well, we would have chosen. Go ahead.
Utah's the anti-Suns, which is why I couldn't pick them. It is stunning how much they blow fourth quarter leads. So, and Luka, I was texting you guys about it, and I get everything about Luka. I get how amazing and talented he is. I just don't trust the guy to win games. I don't.
What's nice though is as much as it sucks in some ways to get like the Clippers in the first round, especially if Kawhi comes back. I like our second round. I like whoever comes out of that. I really do.
Yeah.
And then, if we have to play, I guess, Memphis or Golden State.
Got to play somebody good eventually.
It is what it is, yeah.
I think we've all well, I don't want to speak for you two. I would have picked Dallas to beat Utah handily if Luka was 100%. And I don't like Dallas and I don't like Luka. But just watching Utah and the way they keep falling apart down the stretch and the undeniable tension between Mitchell and Gobert.
For me, that's what it is.
To me, that's a first-round exit waiting to happen again, and they're going to blow that team up. So I would have taken Dallas until the Luka uncertainty. I could be wrong. He could miss most of the first series, maybe all of it. I don't know. But to me, I'm like, it's a calf strain. Those can be bad and they can lead to worse injuries, but he's not missing more than a couple games. I can't imagine.
Well, that's the biggest question, is because everyone remembers so accurately what happened with Kevin Durant when he had a calf strain, and then he comes back and plays, and oops, his Achilles snapped. Is there that concern? Is Luke concerned about that? And it was a year. How
many days ago did that happen? 2 days?
It was in the finale. So yeah.
So
Sunday.
They say average time for recovery in a calf strain is about 16 days.
Mm-hmm.
So how many games is that?
That's the whole series, pretty much.
Well, so that's...
And even though I think he'll come back, it's also a question of, even if he doesn't re-aggravate it or have some other injury, like Dave alluded to, what does he bring to the table? He's phenomenal, and even at 70%, he could still take over a series because his game's not predicated on athleticism for the most part. But can they afford to have that when their second best player is Spencer Dinwiddie? I don't know. Even against Utah, that might be a tall tale. I don't know.
It's one of those things I just plain don't worry about either team. And even if Luke is at 100%, I think Mikal is just that damn good at guarding him. We always have beaten the Mavericks ever since Luka and Ayton came into the league. I think we're 9-1 against them total since Ayton and Luka came in the league, and the only loss I think Booker didn't play. So
Yep.
Okay.
So my official prediction is Suns over Celtics in 5, and that's not because I think the Suns are better than the Celtics by that extent, but because I really want us to close out at home. Now, forgetting now, like last year, I think we ultimately picked the Suns in 6 in the finals when we were presented with just that specific matchup because of the respect we had for the Bucks and just the difficulty ahead of us. I think I would truly pick Suns over Celtics in 6, but I'm being greedy this year because we're better, so I want us to win in 5.
I'm going to say Suns in 6 over Milwaukee. Flip the result from last year. But one of those 2 wins from Milwaukee is going to come when it's way too late anyways. So it's going to be
it's like 3-1 to 3-2. And then,
yeah.
Great. The worst thing that we can have is we're all ready to celebrate a championship and they win game 5. Great.
I guess
that's bad, but then what if it's 3-0 and we lose 2 straight? Then we're going to be all sorts of sad too. That's still game 5. I don't know.
Yep.
And then I will probably split the difference between you. I say Suns over Celtics in 6.
Okay. So I have the most extreme.
I didn't hear the dog.
Suns over Celtics in 6.
Okay, Suns in 6. Suns in 6 Celtics. Suns in 5 Celtics. Suns in 6 Milwaukee.
Suns in 4.
Suns in 4.
Suns in 4.
But Bucks in 6 was the running joke. So if we did beat them in 6, then it would be some kind of poetry.
Don't get me wrong. So when the Spurs went through in 2014, did they lose 2 games in the entire post? It was something wild. They steamrolled everybody.
Yeah.
They won 5 in the finals. I know that.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I want from this year's Suns is series in 5, series in 5, series in 5, series in 5. Yeah. I'll take 4 total losses. That's fine.
I would love sweep the first round, beat the Jazz in 5, beat the Warriors in 5, and then maybe we have to go 6 for I don't know. But that type of just we were the best team. No.
Yep.
It's easy to forget Spurs got taken to 7 by Dallas in the first round in the 1-8 matchup.
That is surprising.
After that, they kind of kicked it into the next level. They beat the shit out of Miami in the finals. They definitely turned it up a notch, but they needed to hang on for their life in that first round.
Crazy. And then they just destroyed everyone afterward.
Shout outs to Dirk, I guess.
Yeah, that was a good Dallas team, though.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we've locked it in. We are now hoping and praying at this point. There's nothing else we can do as fans. We can think we have influence, but we don't. Unless we go to a game or two, which we haven't even really discussed.
We ain't talked about it yet. Yeah. What are we doing?
Well,
it's hard to plan when we don't even know who we're playing yet.
That's right.
I've told you guys that if Mikal Bridges wins, Defensive Player of the Year, then I've got enough money. I've got money for tickets for at least one game. So.
Yeah.
Well, in theory, Game 2 is going to be what, Tuesday? Game 1 is Sunday for sure. We don't know who or when yet, but I know Game 1 is Sunday, which in theory that means we have to be playing Game 2 Tuesday. I would assume. I can't imagine that going to Wednesday when we would then travel after that game.
And I'll be out of town.
Yeah, you're gone, and Tuesday's not great for us, and there's also the show. But I don't think I can do Sunday because we're going to have people in town. So I don't know if the first round's going to happen. If we sweep, there's no way we can do it.
We'll go second round this year.
Yep.
We'll go to a second round game. It'll be more exciting.
Probably the best way to split the difference because it'll be against a more boring opponent and not against the Warriors where tickets are always at a huge premium, or Memphis. Well, it's going to be the Western Conference Finals, so they're going to be expensive as hell.
Yeah.
So maybe. We'll see. I'm willing to go a little crazy, but not too crazy. Alrighty, well, that's the end of this episode. Next Tuesday, we'll be around. Dave will not. He's going to be in Disneyland.
Weird.
My kids' birthdays,
Just
so
kidding.
I'm treating them to a trip.
That's nice. It's a nice thing that we can't really make fun of, but we will be here, and we're going to be reviewing at least Haikyuu Season 4. And the one other thing I forgot, I didn't even bring this up until right now on air, but we were also going to do Cobra Kai. So we could either do both or save one of them for later, but we have some options. We'll be doing a review of some kind.
Let's do both.
We can probably just do both, because I'm not going to have, I think, an hour worth of things to say about Season 4 of Haikyuu, as much as I love the show.
Or Cobra Kai, really. So by putting them together, it's perfect.
So I think we'll probably do both next week. Michaela will be on to replace Dave. Dave will be dead to us until the following week when he'll be alive again.
And then we'll talk about the Suns again. Probably win this week, their first round opponent.
Probably.
It might be. We're sorry, everyone. If you hate us talking about the Suns, look, it's playoff season. We do it less during the season so that we can go more in playoffs, okay?
And I will say, if we do happen to get back to the finals, I am all down for live post-game shows by us. I want to do that.
That's
Yeah,
fine
we're going
with
to have
me.
some capabilities that are different than we do right now, so those are options. And I still have not figured out, like in my head, I think I know what it looks like if we won the title. And it'd probably just be like me on my phone streaming to YouTube, like weeping. But we're not going to have overlays and shit because we're going to be somewhere. I don't know, but
We'll be at a parade. We'll take a video from there, that's for sure.
there you go. All right, that's the end of the episode. In between shows, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, or at youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos 6.5 days a week. We'll see you next time.